hold on. Gimel Omid Aleph, right at the last two lines of the Gemara. And we were speaking on this Mishnah. It was discussing, if you remember, someone who gives testimony and says that the individual has a loan. He owes him 1,000 zuz, any money you like, but it is the example we've got. And he says he's meant to give it back in 30 days. And the plaintiff, but says the person who's got the loan admits, I've got a loan. He said, but I had it for 10 years. And the other person said, no, the Adim say it's only for 30 days, and therefore it needs to be repaid that much earlier. And then they're found to be Adim Zonamim. Imon Hoyisim, you were with us, the Adim are told. Somewhere else you couldn't possibly have seen this. They are therefore not just false witnesses. They are in this category of Adim Zonamim, planning to get someone else to, in this case, pay that 1,000 zuz. But it's what's the calculation here? So remember we said, you do a calculation, how much, and this is an interesting valuation, I suppose you get the business boys onto this, and you say, what would you do with a loan of, this in case 1,000 zuz, could be 10 million pounds, what would you do to have a loan of 10 million pounds? What's it worth if that was agreed with whoever, and you got a 10-year loan? What's it worth? And then compare that to a loan that you've got of 10, well, it's the same amount, but it's only for a month. What would you do to get a loan secured, and say in that way, for 10? And the difference between the two is clearly what he wanted the other person to lose, because he would have had a loan for 10 years and could have done, depending on his capabilities, his business acumen and everything else. What could he do with the 10 million pounds for 10 years? And just the fact that he had that loan for 10 years, what's it worth to have, just the worth? What's it worth for you to have this loan? Obviously, it's got a price. And the difference between the two is what they wanted this individual to lose. But there's an additional problem here. And the Gemara immediately picks it up. Omer Rabbi Yehuda, Omer Shmuel. Now, this Mishnah, put that to the side for the moment, because we're going to use that in the following discussion. The Gemara says, Omer Rabbi Yehuda, Omer Shmuel. So in the name of Shmuel, that we always say is Premier Division Amoraim, Rav and Shmuel head the time of the Amoraim. After the Tanoim, we're into the time of the Gemara, and Rav and Shmuel are the two big heads, and then the next generations come through after that. Rabbi Yehuda would be a Talmud of Shmuel. But anyway, in the name of Shmuel, this is what he said. Someone who lends someone for 10 years, Shavius Misham Toso. What does that mean? The Shavius, Shamto, the Shavius will cancel that loan. Now, what is this all about? Can I please turn to you, Peter? And this is for now, Devarim, chapter 15, Posuk 2, Tesvav base. Devarim, Deuteronomy. Oh, well done there. Very excellent. This is the nature, if you like, of the Shemitah means loosening. You're loosening your grip. He says it, remission, loosening your grip on a loan. That's why it's called Shemitah. You're loosening. Shomot, called Baal Mashe Yodo, someone who has Mashe Yodo is the name really for a creditor. Shomot, he should Shomot if you like, release, his hand should release anyone who actually has a Baal. He's the owner of a loan, of something given over by hand. In other words, he is a creditor. Someone who is a creditor should, if you like, lessen their grip. Asher Yasher B'Riyehu. Someone, so he's got a claim against someone else. Mashe Yoda. That's a claim against someone else. That means he's a creditor. He should loosen the grip, Asher Yasher, which he's got this claim, B'Riyehu, with his friend. What does that mean? That means he cannot claim it. Lo yigos esri ehu. So number one, shomer, means it's the grip on this loan has been loosened. And what does he do? Lo yigos esri ehu. He cannot. Oh, that's the word. They shall not done. People know what the word done means. I'm not familiar with that one. They shall not done their fellow. Lo yigos means you shouldn't claim. Don't know that word. Do you know that word done, Peter? Familiar to you? They shall not done their means you can't claim. Lo yigos it's called, he calls it remission. What it means by remission here means it's a loosening. In a word, loans, when they cross Shemitah year, are cancelled. You cannot claim a loan after Shemitah. Okay? Now, there are other ways, I wouldn't say ways of doing it, and we'll find out about that shortly, which people may be familiar with what's called a prusbul, or handing the loan over to the Bezdin, but let's leave that for the minute. The Torah tells us that the loan is cancelled, in which way you lessen your grip, loosen your grip, and you can't claim it. Okay, that's the pasuk that we're talking about. Okay. Now this is actually, the next pasuk is very interesting. Not that we need it for today. Es hanochri tigos. You may claim a loan if it's a person non-Jewish, but not if it's belonging to someone. It says your chicha, your brother, which means someone who is Jewish. That's the person you cannot claim the loan off, but you can claim. The point about the as I say, the loan being cancelled only applies if it's a loan between two Yehudim. Okay. Now that word tigos means you obviously you don't. Doesn't mean when you say you claim, you've got to claim. In other words, it sounds like, go around as much as you can trying to get loans off people, and that's, I think, where often people make this mistake. They think, we know about Shylock, they're into loans. It doesn't mean to say you've got to do what you can to get a loan off a non-Jew. No. What it means is, if es hanochri tigos, you can claim loans from non-Jews, and Shemitah does not cancel the loan. Doesn't mean to say you must go around making sure you got a loan from a non-Jew, or giving a loan to a non-Jew to claim the interest on it. But I think that's the posuk that they often use when they're talking about people talking about the Jewish Shylocks and lending money at exorbitant prices, etc. Those people are trying to use that posuk, but of course that posuk doesn't mean that. It means you can, not that you must and should. But leaving that aside, that's not talking anything about interest rates. It's just the loan is not cancelled if the loan has been given to a non-Jew. So let's go back to our Gemara. Thank you very much, Peter. So there we are. There's the pasuk. So if you've got a loan, and what happens? The loan in Shemitah year becomes, as we said, cancelled. What happens if you have a loan which goes across Shemitah and is only to be claimed sometime after Shemitah? So you took a loan out. It's a 10-year loan. It's taken out 5 years before Shemitah, goes across Shemitah. and meant to be claimed 5 years later, or whenever it is, 4 years later, of the Shemitah year. So you're not going to be claiming it in Shemitah year anyway for the loan to be cancelled. Does that come under the rules of Shemitah or not? If you make a 10-year loan. Now look at the Gemara. Omar, Rabbi Yehuda, Omar Shmuel. Hamal be'es chaver le'eser shonim, shvius mishamtoi. Shvius will cancel that loan. Although it's not due in Shemitah, it's not as if it's a Shemitah loan which you're now cancelling. It's not due that year anyway. It doesn't matter. It goes across Shemitah, and that's the point. And you cannot claim any loan which crosses over. That is the way that Shmuel is explaining that pasuk. It's not just a loan that's going to come to an end in Shemitah or just immediately after Shemitah. It's any loan that crosses Shemitah. Particularly, it's like the last day of Shemitah, just before Rosh Hashanah, going into the next year. The loan is cancelled. You cannot claim it. Okay. Says, as we turn the page, it was nice to turn the page. We're now on Gimel Amud Beis. Well found, Peter. V'afal gav, even though dahashta lo korino bo lo yigos. We're not saying, what do you mean now? Look at Rashi, please. After dahashta, in Shemitah year itself, we're not going to say that pasuk's relevant in Shemitah year. That's what it means. Lo karino bela. We're not going to use that word of lo yigos don't claim, because it's not claiming in Shemitah year anyway. Have a look at Rashi. Sheharei im bola nogsoi below shvius. If he came to claim it, even if there wasn't the rule of Shemitah, Nami, and he can't claim it because it's a 10-year loan and it goes across Shemitah. Lo omrinom, we do not say kiven de lo korino be lo yigos. Lo korino be they go together. The loan is cancelled and you cannot claim it. They go together. In other words, I might have thought I'm not going to be claiming this loan anyway in Shemitah year because it's meant to go beyond. It's got a few years still to run. So maybe Shemitah doesn't apply to that. That's what Rashi says. Lo yigos, the third line. As I'm not going to apply the words of you mustn't claim it, well, I'm not going to claim it anyway. Lo korino be shomait. Therefore, maybe such a loan is not cancelled. The soif osili delegas. Shmuel is explaining what the pasuk means. The pasuk means any loan which goes across Shemitah year, you cannot claim that loan. That's the point. This is how the pasuk should be understood, or this is how you should hear it, if you see what I mean. Lo yigos bismano, don't claim at the time when the loan will come to its end in the right time. Esrieu, a friend, Kikoro Shemitah Koleb, because it was already going and transversing across Shemitah year. Therefore, it comes to an end. Happy with that? That's fair enough. I'm doing back to the Gemara. So, second line of the Gemara, it would have come to a claim. It's a loan which would have been claimed sometime after Shemitah. It crosses Shemitah year. In fact, the moment is the last moment of that Shemitah year. Loans are cancelled. Any loan at that point, cancelled. Then the idea is, as we know from many of them foreshadowing about Shemitah, that we are not in control here. People think they're in control. We are not in control. Whether it's financial, certainly not health issues, we're not in control at all. What's happening on a day-to-day basis. And the idea is that a person should feel that the same with loans. They don't own. They're giving a loan. It's cancelled. But that money it's being used. I'm giving a loan. I'm helping someone out. But yet money will move around as well. Presumably loans will be for shorter periods. But the point is, any loan at that time moves out of the ownership of the original, I'd say the creditor, and then is not claimed. Right, says the Gemara. That's the statement of Shmuel. So again, a loan going across Shemitah year and going beyond Shemitah is going to be cancelled just before the new year commences. With me? Says the Gemara, 1 minute. What about our Mishnah? What did we say in our Mishnah? We said in our Mishnah that if somebody has a loan for 10 years and Adim come forward and say the loan's only 30 days, you do a calculation between what would it be worth to have a loan for 10 years compared to a loan for 30 days? So let's come on 1 minute. You just said, according to Shmuel, that a loan that crosses Shemitah is cancelled. Well, if it's a 10-year loan, it's bound to cross Shemitah. Shemitah is every 7 years. So therefore, let's think about it. He had a loan for 10 years. What did that mean? That means he would never have to repay it. So how can the Gemara say you do a calculation? What would somebody do? It sounds like to have a loan for 10 years, which they would then repay, compared to having a loan for 30 days and then repaying. With me? Have a look, please. If you could put Peter on. Yeah, well done. Have a look at the Gemara. We're on Gimel Amud Beis, and we're saying massive Rav Kahana. So again, a loan that goes across Shemitah is cancelled. There are ways around this, but as far as the Torah is concerned, we'll see about this in a moment. A loan that crosses Shemitah is cancelled. Every 7 years, you've got the Shemitah year. A loan is cancelled. What do we say in the Mishnah? Look at this. Massive Rav Kahana. Oimdim, if you remember, the Mishnah told us, we do a calculation, an estimation, valuation, if you like. Kama odom roitze litan. How much would somebody pay, give? V'yu elef zuz. In our Mishnah, it was 1,000 zuz. Biyodo. Bein litain mikan v'ad shloshim yom. Whether it was given and it have to be repaid after 30 days. Bein litain, next line, mikan v'ad eser shonim. Or if it would have to be repaid after 10 years. And the difference between those two is what the Adim wanted this individual to lose, because they said he only had a loan for 30 days. Do a lot less and presumably a lot easier to get a 30-day loan than it is to get a 10-year loan. So, says the Gemara, just 1 minute. That's the wrong calculation. Ve'i omras, and if it's true what you said in the name of Shmuel, the Shavi'is Misham Tosso, that the Shemitah year cancels loans. Kulhu Nami Boy Shalumile. They should really pay him everything. Why? Because he would have had a loan which would have been cancelled in Shemitah year. You with me? So don't do a calculation of what's worth having 30 days compared to having to repay it after 10. He wouldn't have to repay it because a loan that crosses Shemitah is cancelled. You with me? So that seems to be in contradiction to what Shmuel says. We've got a question against the view of Shmuel. Shmuel says a loan that goes over Shemitah year is cancelled. Our Mishnah seems to contradict that, because it says you do a calculation of a loan and which you'd have to repay after 10. You'd never have to repay a loan after 10 years. And that should have been how much these individuals should pay. They should pay everything. He would have got the 1,000 zuz. it's not just the cost, how much someone would be prepared to give someone a loan for thousand. It's the full thousand shekel, thousand zuz he would have had. Omar Rava. Rava answers this question. Hocha hey base ayin. You got it? Hocha b'may oskinon. Here, you know what we're talking about? And this is the famous hamalver ala mashkin. If someone lends money and there is a mashkin, which means not a bit like it's not a deposit for the money, it means a pledge. You've given over something, could be for the value of the loan. Hamalve ala mashkin, you've lent money on a pledge, which means you've given the individual some, again, A has lent B the money, B gives A an item and says, here it is, in case I don't repay, you have that item, whatever it is. If a loan is made with such a pledge, then I suppose you'd really call it collateral, wouldn't you? In other words, if you've got something to fall back on. So let's talk about the two people here, Reuven and Shimon. Reuven's lent money to Shimon. If it crosses Shemitah year, Reuven cannot claim the money back from Shimon. However, if Shimon gave Reuven this collateral, pledge, whatever it is, saying, if I don't repay, you've got this collateral, keep it, then it's not really called claiming. You're not, when you say a claim against the other individual, it's not really a proper claim, because if he doesn't want to pay me, I've got everything. I've got the collateral, which I can keep. So therefore, that does not fall foul of a loan which needs to be cancelled. The only loans which get cancelled are loans which prevent this case of Reuven coming saying, I want my money back. Well, he doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to claim it anyway because he's got the collateral. So the rule is, if you have a loan, Reuven lent money to Shimon. Shimon gave Reuven this collateral. That loan is not cancelled through Shemitah. So that's one example. So we could say our Mishnah says the Gemara is talking about Moisa Shtoi Roisov Le Bezdin. Got it? Omar Rava again. You know what we're talking about? B'malve ala mashkin, someone who lent money with his collateral. Or there's another option. Moisa Shtoi Roisov Le Bezdin, someone who hands over his documents to the Bezdin. Why? Just have a look at the next slide. Desnan, we'll have a look at Rashi in a moment. Hamalve ala mashkin, if you lend money and there's collateral, or Moisa Shtorosav LeBezdin, before the Shemitah year, you hand over your documents to the Bezdin and say, would you claim this? We'll see about this in a moment. Ein mashmitin, then such loans are not cancelled, and that's what our Mishnah is talking about. Our Mishnah, some people would call this a pruzbul. That's what people do. Many people do that before the Shemitah year concludes. They write a pruzbul. Have a look, please, at Rashi. First narrow line of Rashi. Moisa Shtoroisov LeBezdin. If you hand over your documents, your bill of loan to the Bezdin, who pruzbul. Pruzbul is a word made up of two parts. It's good for, which good actually for wealthy people. It's good for people who need loans. It allows people to make loans. And how does that work? Hillel instituted this. Hiskin Hillel. Shekosovo, it's written in the document you hand to the Bezdin. Mosrani lochem, I'm handing over to you, Ploni or Ploni, Hadayonim, the two judges, whoever they happen to be, Sheba Mokum Ploni, in this such a place. Shekol Choiv Sheyeshli, every loan that I can claim, Egvenu Kolzman She'esed, allowing me to claim it whenever I want, because it's been handed over to you. It's almost like a bezdin. It's not a personal loan anymore. It's true, ultimately it will go back to him, and bezdin are happy to do that. Bezdin is saying, we take over this loan on your behalf. This Hillel instituted this to allow loans to continue. When they could see people were not lending money, they were scared it was going to go across Shemitah year and they'd lose the money. So he instituted the idea of handing the loan across to Bezdin, and you then claim it on behalf of Bezdin, and Bezdin will then give it back to you. Now, you may say that sounds a bit like a dray. No, and it's not. It's not you claiming the money. It's Bezdin's loan. You've handed it over to Bezdin, and that's perfectly legal. If you want to write a principle, you can do that, and many people do. You have people writing documents, and to anybody can act in that capacity. It doesn't mean the dying of the London Bezdin. You could be two individuals acting in that capacity, as long as you've got the right wording. What you're saying is, I'm handing it over to you, and I'm now acting on your behalf. You want trustworthy dayanim, they're not going to run off with that money. But you're acting on their behalf. You're then claiming the money for the bezdin, really, with me? And therefore, it's not your loan. Now, bezdin are out of this, because it talks always about on an individual cannot claim a loan. But this is not an individual anymore. This is considered, they're not individual, this is the Bezdin. And the Bezdin taking on that loan would therefore be permitted. So back to our Mishnah again, our Mishnah, which was talking about doing this calculation between the difference of having a loan to have to repay it after 10 years or after a month. It may well have been under one of these examples. Maybe the loan was with collateral, maybe it was with a prusbul handed over to the Bezdin, in which case that's fine and the loan would stand, and that's really what our Mishnah means. Very good indeed. Says the Gemara, there's an alternative about what Shmuel said. Amazing. Ikeda Amre, there are those that say, Omer Rabbi Yehuda, Omer Shmuel, if someone does lend for 10 years, Ein Shvius Misham Tosai. Shvius does not cancel it. So there we are. It's the other way around. A loan, it's only loans which would have been claimed immediately after Shemitah we're worried about. We're not worried about loans that go on for much longer. That's really what he's saying. Different to what we said before. So there's obviously an argument as to what exactly Shmuel says. Of course, you need halach on this. Even though ultimately they're going to claim the loan. And we thought, this is an alternative understanding of Shmuel. We thought Shmuel, or the Pasuk says, you're not allowed to claim a loan that goes across Shemitah. Well, this goes across Shemitah, it's 10 years. No. Says the Gemara, Hashta mio lo karina bola yigos. Right now, you're not claiming it in Shemitah year, or immediately after. And for that reason, this loan is not cancelled and goes on. Now, if that's the understanding of what Shmuel said, and you can see there's an argument about what Shmuel really says, Omer Rav Kahana, I got a proof that is correct, that a 10-year loan is not cancelled with the Shemitah. It's only a loan which comes to an end in Shemitah. that we're worried about. Because the Mishnah says we do a calculation. How much would somebody pay? He had a loan. Whether he'd have to give it back after 10 years, or in this case 30 days. So you can see from the Mishnah that it works. You can have a loan for 10 years, which seems to prove the point. Now, you see, last time, when we thought Shmuel says it doesn't work, we had a question from the Mishnah. If you say what Shmuel says is it does work, then the Mishnah will be a proof of what he said. With me? Shmuel says a 10-year loan that goes across Shemitah and beyond. Shemitah will not cancel it. It's only a loan which comes to an end in Shemitah that you can't claim. The Mishnah seems to help us with that. It's a 10-year loan going across Shemitah, and it works because we're doing a calculation. How much would a person pay to have a loan which he'd have to repay after 10 years? So if you'll tell me that the Shvius would cancel it, kulhu nami boy shalumele, he'd have to pay the whole lot. What do you mean, who would have to pay? The Eidim Zomamim, who wanted him to lose a loan of 10 years, which, if it would be correct, is cancelled, that means he would have lost the full loan. He really should be paying, the Eidim should be paying a full loan. He claimed I had a loan for 10 years, which, if it's correct, it's cancelled. It means he would have lost that whole loan. It's only 30 days now. So therefore, it sounds like that's a very good proof from our Mishnah that you can have a loan for 10 years and Shvius does not cancel that loan. Omar Rava, now Rava's coming the other way around. You know what our Mishnah is talking about? A special case of a malva ala mashkin, a malva with a collateral, or Moshe Shtaros of the Bezdin, or if someone hands over the documents to Bezdin, this prusbul that Rashi spoke about. Continue the Gemara. Disnan hamalve ala mashkin va Moshe Shtaros of the Bezdin ein mashmitin. So there are two ways to learn what Shmuel said. If you look at the top line of the Tosfos, I'm just the top line. Omer Rabbeinu Tam, the halacha kalishna basra. The halacha is like the lishna basra, which is the second way interpretation of what, well, not interpretation, wording of what Shmuel said. So if that's true, what does that mean? If a person has a loan for 10 years, as we've seen here, Shemitah does not apply to it. So we've got there, Shemitah doesn't apply to it. Our Mishnah, according to that, was talking about with a prusbul. You could say our Mishnah, no, there are two things. If you say that the halacha is like Shmuel, who says that a 10-year loan is not cancelled, our Mishnah is very simple in its, I say, straightforward way. You don't need to say, it's only if you want to bring that as a proof. Yeah? In other words, to say a solid proof for that view from our Mishnah, because our Mishnah says you can have a 10-year loan. It's not a proof because you could explain the Mishnah talking about a case where they made a prusbul with me. So it's not a proof. But if it's correct that what Shmuel says, which is a 10-year loan is not cancelled with Shemitah, then you could quite happily learn our Mishnah in a very simple way that it was a 10-year loan because it's not a loan which finishes in Shemitah year. It's not going to be cancelled anyway, with me. So therefore, the 10-year loan would anyway not come to an end, and that would be fine. So you can see, interesting, from Tosfos, that we really don't need to write a prusbul. if the loan would extend beyond Shemitah year itself. You with me? It's only a loan which comes to an end in Shemitah where you need to have something in place so that the loan isn't cancelled. I hope I've lost people here. But it depends which. It's quite important because it's going to depend on which one of these statements of Shmuel are we holding as the halacha. If you hold it's the first view of Shmuel, then any loan which crosses over Shemitah would come to an end at Shemitah. And therefore, you always need to write a prusbul if you have loans which are going beyond Shemitah, and very easy to do. Or you'd say, no, it's only loans which actually come to an end in Shemitah you need a prusbul for. You with me? So depending on how you learn here, Rabbeinu Tam seems to learn the second view, others learn like the first. And therefore, the simplest thing is if you do have a loan, actually in halacha, we do actually have or these prusbul taken out. That's the easiest way. No loans are then cancelled. Interesting whether you've got talk about the shmita of the ground, the shmita of the land, which means the land is fallow and no planting going on. There's also what's called shmitas kasofim. And this is Shmitas Kasofim from that posuk that we just saw that Peter pulled up for us from the Torah that we see about the cancelling of loans. So no problem from our Mishnah. Mishnah actually could be a support according to the second view, although we're not 100% proof. But those are the two views of Shmuel as to whether a loan would actually fall foul, not fall foul, I mean, it would come to an end in Shemitah if it's not meant to be repaid in Shemitah anyway. Is it only loans which in Shemitah year you'd claim, you then can't claim? Or is it any loans which go beyond, right across Shemitah, that at Shemitah they come to an end? Malcolm, you'd have to come up and mute, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not this sort of, it's not my field really, as loans and stuff, but I question on that one, if you have a loan that cuts across Shemitah,
yes,
but also ends in Shemitah, it's a 10-year loan, right? So if you have if you take out a loan 3 years before Shemitah,
yes,
or whatever it is, and it crosses one Shemitah.
Oh, well, yeah. Once you, according
but
to,
it ends in another Shemitah.
That will depend on these two views. According to the first view, we've said that's what the first view we saw. Shvius will knock it on his head. That's it. It's gone through. It's not if it passes through a Shemitah year, the loan's finished. According to the second view.
Yeah, but right. you would do what you said. You'd have a prusbul. You'd write a prusbul. Yeah.
I'd hand it over to Bezin. Yeah, but if you didn't, let's say you didn't do that, a loan crossing over, according to the first view, once it's crossed Shemitah, it's come to an end. According to the second view, no, it's not come to an end. But if you're right, the 10 years is actually going to be up in Shemitah year, that's when you'd claim it. That would also be a problem. Now, in other words, if the 10 years finishes not in the Shemitah year, not in one of those 7 years, you with me? It starts, the 10 years starts 5 years before Shemitah and is going 5 years beyond Shemitah, right? According to the first view we saw in Shmuel, it will knock it on the head. Once it goes through Shemitah year, the loan is cancelled. According to the second view, it's only if it's a loan which would be claimed in Shemitah year. So in that example I've just given you, 5 years before Shemitah, 5 years afterwards, that loan would not being repaid in Shemitah year means that the loan would continue. However, your example that you came up with, which a loan taken out 3 years before Shemitah, it's a 10-year loan finishing in Shemitah, then either way you'd learn, the loan would come to an end. According to the first view, once it's gone through the first Shemitah, it's come to an end. According to the second view, it's true the first Shemitah would not knock it out, but the second one would. Have I confused you a little bit?
Yeah, no. So therefore, that's what I'm saying in terms of this calculation.
Yes.
Isn't that a special case? Because then they can't get out of it.
So yeah, it's what we're saying here. The Mishnah seems to say you do this calculation, doesn't matter when. If it's a 10-year loan, and you're going to say, how much would a person want and to repay the loan after 10? Well, according to the first view we saw, it sounded like that a 10-year loan, once it goes through Shemitah, it comes to an end. The answer we gave to that was, but our Mishnah was talking about when it was handed over through a prusbul. You with me?
Yeah, so the loan is still active.
Right, the loan is absolutely, because through a prusbul, it means you're not actually claiming it, it's Bezdin's loan, and therefore it would still continue. But what we're learning in Shmuel is what happens if you didn't have a prusbul. If someone did not take out a prusbul, would the loan be cancelled or not? Those are the two views of Shmuel. If it crosses over Shemitah year, is a loan cancelled? If it finishes in Shemitah year, yeah, for sure it's cancelled without a prusbul. With me? Or without collateral. If you've got collateral, then you're not reclaiming the loan anyway. The creditor's got that money. He's got the collateral to fall back on. So he's not too worried, quite honestly. Yeah. So it's not good. He will never have to really claim the loan. Yeah.
If there was collateral and it comes to an end in Shemitah year, what?
Nothing. That's fine. That's fine.
You keep the collateral.
You could keep the collateral, absolutely. If a fellow refused to pay, I mean, the loan actually doesn't come to an end. That's the point. Once you've got
the Shemitah year cancels. I thought you said
it cancels.
Doesn't it cancels it?
Yeah, unless the loan was with collateral, in which case it won't be cancelled, because you were never going to claim that loan anyway. You don't need to claim it. You've got the collateral. Such a loan, is that right? Such a loan does not fall under the rules of Shemitah. It's outside Shemitah. Similarly, if you have a loan and you use this prusbul, it falls outside Shemitah. You don't worry about claiming. With me? It's a normal loan. Shemitah will not apply to that loan. That's really what we're saying. But it's very interesting. We get a view there about both of these, and depending on how you paskin, whether you'd have to take a prusbul if you had a loan which went across. So if you were paskin like the first, in fact, now people do, if they had these long-term loans, it's not a very difficult thing to get it signed, to get a prusbul signed. And that way you'd ensure either way, either view, if you were worried about the first view of Shmuel, that in fact it does come to an end, then it doesn't matter because your loan is now outside and you don't have to worry about that, about the cancellation of the loan. Okay, says the Gemara. Let's move on.
Norman, just one quick question. If it was a loan that was cancelled, if it crossed Shemitah, it would be so easy to get out of it because you just extend it by a little bit, so it doesn't either before, so it doesn't cross into Shemitah.
According to that one view,
it would be a very, very odd halacha that you could so easily avoid by making it a few months.
Well, yeah, we just don't want a loan to. We don't. Yeah, if the loan comes to an end, you can't. In Shemitah is a very special year, and there's no claiming of loans taking place, and the land goes back, and say you talk about controlling of. You're not doing any harvesting, no work in the field. That all comes to an end. But this wasn't going to happen in Shemitah year anyway. So it's the Shemitah year which is important. That's really what we're saying. Yeah. So you don't do any claim. You're right. If you can go, I'll say, hand it over to the Bezdin. That's fine. It's only in the Shemitah year we don't want people claiming loans, because that's a year when we're out of that. It's teaching people, that the control we've got over things is limited, and therefore it's just that if it goes beyond. But according to the other view, that if it crosses over Shemitah, you're going to be in problem. Once it's gone beyond Shemitah, you're in trouble. So therefore, you're right. It's quite an easy thing. You can still have the principle. He instituted that people should do that, and that would ensure that people would be certain when they're giving out the loans, they have them with a principle. That way, the wealthier people who are giving the loans were happy to give loans. They wouldn't have to start scrambling, and he instituted to put a principle with it. That way, it'll help everybody. People are happy to lend. Want to help out people. Why shouldn't they? If they've got the money available, why shouldn't they help somebody? So they knew they would get their money back, and the others, the recipient was also very happy because he knew there were people out there prepared to give him money because he'd have to repay it. Otherwise, the creditor goes to the business and gets his forces. So you're right. It's not a difficult thing to look after and set up a principle. That's a very simple thing to do. So with that, we move on to another interesting topic. Another statement in the name of Rabbi Yehuda, in the name of Shmuel. This is interesting. Someone who says to his friend, Al-manas shelo tishmateni shvius. I'm giving you a loan on condition that shvius shouldn't cancel it. Can you do such a thing? You say, I'm giving you a loan, and I know all these rules with a principle. I don't want to get involved in the principle. I haven't got time for all of that. I'm happy to give you a loan on condition that shvius will not cancel the loan. Says the Gemara, sorry, shvius does cancel it whether you like it or not. Shvius mishametes. It does cancel it. Now, this is interesting because this is a monetary, obviously. We're talking here about something, a financial matter. And the Gemara suggests, Lema Kesova Shmuel, Masna al Mashe Kosov Batoro. Are you telling me, now you normally can't make rules against the Torah. That's called Masna al Mashe Kosov Batoro. You can't make conditions against the Torah. They're rules. Rules are rules. But there's an argument about if it's on a financial matter, can you make a rule? Because when it comes to finances, people can be moichel. You can always give somebody a present. You can give somebody a gift. So if somebody maybe wants to do something which is against the Torah financially, maybe it works. Why does it work? Because you could always just give it away anyway. You give it away as a gift. So what's this case? The case is someone's giving a loan on condition that shvius will not cancel it. It's as if saying, are you, the recipient, prepared to give me money even after Shemitah? Well, you can always, even if Shemitah can't, you could always give money to anybody if it's your money. So there's an argument about, can you have a condition in financial matters against the Torah? Now, the fact that Shmuel has said shvius will cancel it, I'm doing the Gemara that says shvius mishametes. Lema Kesova Shmuel, it sounds like on financial matters, Masna Mashe Kosov Batorah, you're making a condition. It's true, it's a financial condition against the Torah because the Torah says shvius works. But if you make a condition against that, it will work because it's on a financial matter. And you could always, give someone a present if you want. It's an eye bottle. Ooh. Now, the fact that Shmuel has said Shemitah will still work even under those conditions, you with me? He's made a condition against the Torah. It's a financial matter. There's an argument about it, whether you can do such a thing. There is a view that holds you can make a condition financially. It sounds like Shmuel, however, is not of that opinion. Why? Because he said if you made such a condition, even though both parties agreed, it doesn't matter. It doesn't work because shvius will cancel. You know why? Because I'm reading the Gemara again. Is the reason masne amashe kosel b'Torah? If you make a condition against the Torah, even on a financial matter, that's what this is. Anybody who makes a condition, masne, word tanai, a condition against the Torah, tano'o bottle. His condition is annulled. You can't make condition. The Torah said there's a rule of Shemitah, and the Shemitah will cancel alone. You can't override that. So it's meaningless to make a condition. However, for Itma, we've learned something which doesn't seem to tie in with this. If someone says to their friend, if I'm going to sell you something on condition there's no fraud. Now, when we say this word onor, what do we mean by onor? Onor means if you're not allowed to overcharge someone. Very interesting halacha. It's called onor, which is like, it's not fraud, it's overcharge someone. You cannot take onor. Have a look if I can call upon you, Peter. And this time we want to go to Vayikra Chothei Yudalet. Vayikra. I think we better just set this up for today and continue it on. Here we are. 25. Yudalet. Scrolling down in Mahar. We'll just start this off today. Posuk Yudalet. If you're selling something, or if you're buying something from your neighbor, your friend, amisecha, al tonu, this word of onor. Onor means something wrong with that. What does it mean, onor? If you double press there, let's see what we get. Let's go to commentary. Let's go to Rashi. Oh, I'm doing the first part. That's the simple interpretation. Don't he translates overreach. According to his plain sense, the verse intimates what is literally translated above, which means if you sell something, you cannot overcharge. Now, there's another pshat as well. We don't need that. The main what we're looking at in the simple interpretation of this pasuk is you cannot overcharge, and the rule is this: if someone does overcharge by more than a sixth, there's a going rate. Now, you could say that it's in buying and selling, and it's whatever you can make out of it. No, there are rules. If the going rate for a particular item is X, you cannot increase X by more than a sixth. Well, actually, yeah, even up to a sixth. Up to a sixth, the seller can come back and the purchaser can come back and ask for his money and demand his money back. If it's more than a sixth, then the whole it's just cancelled. So at a sixth, he gets a choice, if you like. That is the rule of. Now, of course, if he's told him, which we're charging over the odds here, that's a different thing. But you can't fool somebody and say, "Oh no, this is the going rate." And it's more than a sixth of the price. You've inflated the price by more than a sixth. Are you with me? Now, let's just have a look at the question here, and then we'll follow this up, all being well, next week. So we've seen, according to Shmuel has said, if you make a loan and say that Shvius will not apply, it applies anyway. So let's go back to seeing each other. So just in summary, and I say we'll have to follow this up next time, all being well. He's made a rule. Shmuel has said, if you give someone a loan on condition that Shvius will not apply, forget about the Prusbul or anything else, we're not going to have Shemitahs applying to this. And according to Shmuel, that doesn't matter. It's going to apply whether you like it or not. You can't go against the Torah, even on financial matters. But we have another rule here, and that's, we leave this in limbo. The Gemara continues. For her itma, beginning line is itma. If onor is not going to apply, so in other words, you say to somebody, I'm selling you this, but don't come back and claim that I've inflated the price by more than a sixth. I'm sorry, I'm not having that. It's yours. There's no comeback on this. Right? Rav Omar, yesh loy olavino. He can still come back because it's against the Torah. The Torah says you can't inflate it by more than a sixth. But look what Shmuel says. Shmuel Omer ein loy olavino. He has no right to come back to the seller and say, excuse me, this was more. You've inflated the price more than a sixth. You can't do that. Now, again, this is another example of someone saying, I'm setting this up against what the Torah says. It's on a financial matter. Can you do it? Does it work, such a condition? Now, here, the same person, Shmuel, says, if we can see the words of Shmuel, Ein loy olav onor. He has no comeback. Why? Because it's against the Torah. You can't inflate the price by more than the sixth. He did. But beforehand, we said, in the case of Shemitah, what did Shmuel say? Someone who says, I'm lending you money on condition that Shemitah will not apply. We said, I'm sorry, you can't have a condition against the Torah. What is the difference between the Shemitah scenario, when you can't make a condition against the Torah, albeit it's a financial matter, and inflating price? When you increase the price and you say, I'm selling you this item, it could be a diamond or whatever, and if I've inflated the price, there's no comeback on this. The person may say, but the Torah says you can't inflate the price. He said, okay, but if I have, there's no comeback on this. So he's going against the Torah by inflating the price. And Shmuel says, if he makes a condition, that's fine. You can make a financial condition against something which the Torah says you must do. In other words, the Torah is saying don't do something, but it works if you actually make such a condition. A very interesting point. The Torah said you shouldn't do something. You're I wouldn't say avoiding. You're deliberately going against the Torah with this condition. Does the condition work? And we seem to have a contradiction. In the case of Shemitah, Shemitah still functions. In the case of Onor does not function. Price inflation, it doesn't work. And therefore, if he's made this condition, according to Shmuel, there's no comeback because he's made that condition at the beginning. Had he not made that condition, of course, you can come back. Inflated the price. Are you with me? So we need to understand, is there a difference or is there a way out to explain between Shemitah and Onor, price inflation? Against Shemitah, can you make conditions? No, you shouldn't. Or maybe you even say you don't, it's not a problem about it. You're allowed to. If you didn't make any conditions about the Shemitah, of course, Shemitah would just wipe their loan, as we said, unless you have a prusbul. But what happens if you make a condition, say, I'm lending you money in condition that Shemitah should not function? Shmuel said, sorry, it still works. Works. Shemitah will cancel the loan. However, in the case of the price inflation, when you're selling goods, Shmuel says there, if you made a condition that there's no comeback if I've inflated the price by more than a sixth, there is no comeback. Why is there a difference between the two? And for that gentleman, I'm afraid time has run out, and something we look forward to next week, all being well. So before we go, we might say a chapter of Tehillim. Still in need. So it's still very delicate what's going on, as everybody knows, and what we all don't know, actually, none of us know what really is going on there, what's really happening. But even the people planning don't really know what's really happening. But that's a separate point. But let's have a look at some Tehillim. Hopefully, will be for Besuras Tovus all round, and we'll have a look at chapter 121. Shall we call on Peter again as we go? Thank you, Peter. Shir Lamalois. Eso Einai El Horim Le'ayin Ezri Me'im Adonai Shamayim Oretz Al Yitei Amalecha Al Yanu Shomalecha Hinei Lo Yanum Velo Yishon Shomer Yisrael Adonai Shomalecha Adonai Ayad Marinecha Yom HaShemesh Vayakeka V'Yorecha Adonai Yishmarecha Mikol Yishma Etzoshecha Adonai Yishma Seita Elohecha Me'ata Ve'ad Olam. Achen kol Beis Yisrael hanusunim b'atzoro u'vashivyo ha'omdim bein b'anim u'bein b'yabosho hamokim yorachim aleim v'yotziim mitzoro lirvocho u'miafelu le'oiro u'mishibu ligula hashto ba'agolo u'vizman kori v'noima amen. Let's hope for some good news, one and all, everywhere, and say Besuras Tovus all round. Thank you, Peter. Just go back. Thank you, Peter. Good to see you, everyone. And